beginning, just introduce yourself. What's your name? Where did you go to school? From primary and junior level?
All right, my name is Omoholo Kikinini, but everyone calls me Bishop, which is a name I got in junior school actually. So I started my primary school in ETA 6. That's something that a lot of people don't know. So I only did a term there and then I moved to Shakawe. But I still count it as a very important part of my schooling experience. So I started in ETA 6 primary school, then I moved to Shakawe Primary School, where I did my whole primary level, and then I went to Shakawe Junior Secondary School, right across from the primary school. Did my JC, and then I went to Shakawe Senior Secondary School. So yeah, my whole schooling has been in Shakawe from primary to high school.
All right.
Yes.
So, what challenges can you say you experienced while schooling from primary until senior level?
Well, there's a lot of challenges just schooling in Shakawe. I mean, all those schools I listed had a lot of, shortage of resources. Learning resources were not very easy to come by. So I had to learn to do the most with so little. Our libraries didn't have a lot of learning materials. I've had periods where we didn't have a subject teacher, for example. So there's a whole lot of that stuff, that affects, the progression of education. But I wouldn't say there were so many challenges beyond that. I mean, I see the things as challenges now, but during the time it was just normal life to me. That's just how things were. Shortage of financial resources. Growing up with my mom, sometimes you didn't have school uniform. Sometimes you had a torn shirt, but I didn't think those were challenges. It was just how we grew up. I would hand down like the uniforms. Shirt e tla be e simolola go apara ke wa ntlha, and then by a handle. So by the time with the apara, it's very old. Buying shoes was something that was difficult. I remember Nerkhona, like during the weekends, would go to the store, like Samiroho and sugarcane with my mom, just so I can buy school shoes. So such kind of things. I mean, there are challenges, but I still don't see them like that. It was just how life was. It was circumstances
All
more
right.
than challenges. Yeah,
No, it's normal. So,
yeah.
I understand you're a merit student.
I'm a
So, like,
merit
yeah.
student.
So, if you don't have any problem, maybe just take us through how many points did you do in Form 5?
I What did I do in Form 5? I did 48 points. Yes. I forgot.
All right.
It's been a minute, but no, yeah, I was a pretty high performing student right from primary school, not just in high school. I was pretty good with a lot of or all subjects, I would say. And I mean, credit to my mother, she was a teacher, so I learned to read pretty early on. Just
All
yeah,
right.
I used to play around here with puzzles. She used to buy me coloring books. I think that played a very big role in my, just my mental growth and development. So by the time I get to primary school, I'm able to read a little bit. I'm very quick thinking, and so that put me up, I guess, a step ahead with a lot of my peers, and I built the confidence. So but yeah, I've always been a high performing student. That's one of the things that I was pretty known for
All
around in
right.
school was that's a high performing student.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good thing I was able to maintain that all the way from primary to high school. That was the challenge, really, maintaining.
Yeah.
It's easy to get good grades, but to be consistent from primary school until high school and even after high school, it's
That's
always
true.
been a thing. So education has always been a big value of mine and my mother and the whole family. We value education. Yeah.
That's dope. So I understand you going to America was academically, right?
Yes, that's how I ended up in the U.S. So when I finished my Form 5, I got the Top Achievers Scholarship, and that's how I got the opportunity to go study in the U.S. I first had to do 2 years of A levels in Livingston Kuluben College. So I moved here and I stayed in Gaborone for about 2 years, where I did my A levels in LKC. And right after that, 2019, I moved to the US to start my college, and I went to Lehigh University.
All
But
right.
yeah, it was all academics. I think my academic journey has taken me to many places.
Okay, so a boy from the north
Yeah.
moving from here to live in the US. How
Yeah.
was the experience from first time you went into that plane and going through up until you reached there? How was the experience?
Ah man, it's very difficult to explain it because there's a lot of emotions for me because it was it was my dream, but it was also the dream I had for other people. In a sense, inspiring other people has always been a part of who I was. Inspiring my peers has always been a part of who I was. Even at school, I took on motivational speaking and I did life coaching for that very reason. I used to mentor a lot of students because for me, education was just a thing I valued, but it was more important for me to share and educate other people or watch other people also, advance. I enjoyed being a high performing student, but I enjoyed, pushing others to be high performing as well. So the move to the US, when I got the top achiever scholarship, was just big for me, but it was also big for Shakawe Senior Secondary School, my peers here, and because it was always bigger than me. So moving to the US, getting in that plane for me was very symbolic. It wasn't just about me at that moment. It was all those moments leading up to that. It was all the people that supported me, my teachers, my peers that look up to me. So I understood how big of a moment it was for, I usually use the term my people. So it was very emotional. I can't lie. I was carrying a lot of emotions with me. Relief was one of them
Mhm.
because I knew it was a goal I had for so long, and then you watch it become real. And I hop onto that plane. I remember first time I landed in New York, everything was just too big and too fast, and I'm like, where the hell I am? Even in the airport, it was my first time flying, and so they just threw threw me on a plane and said, "Go to the U.S." I don't know anybody there. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to go in the airport. So I'm asking every 10 minutes, trying not to miss my flight because I don't know how flights work.
Mhm.
But it was just a big thing, and the whole time, what's playing in my head was this was everything I wanted it to be. Now, a lot of young people that grow up can use my story or use that story because that has always been the biggest thing for me,
Yeah.
giving people a story. Because the power of a story, people don't understand how powerful it is to have a story about, we hear stories about great people, and it sometimes it's okay, but they don't look like you, they don't sound like you, but I look like them. They know where I come from, so the story is more powerful for that reason. Like I like Doro Hulilele, and like we know where this boy comes from. So
Yeah.
I think that was the feeling and emotion around my move to the US.
All right. So, what course is Bishop doing in Lehigh University?
So when I got to Lehigh University, I was doing mechanical engineering and philosophy. There's this interdisciplinary program in Lehigh called Arts Engineering. So basically, I was doing two bachelors at the same time in 5 years. So a normal bachelor is 4 years.
All
So
right.
I was doing two within a 5 year period. So I did Mech E and philosophy. Although I think I'm more the philosopher than the engineer for multiple reasons, but I still am both. Maybe I'm biased because I love philosophy,
Yeah.
and yeah, I still use both in my daily. I work for Lehigh University now, so right after I finished, I got hired by the university. I'm currently working for the Ayakoka Institute, which is a leadership training institute, and it's part of Lehigh University. We do leadership development, global leadership training, business leadership, civic engagement, all that, all those stuff. And I was privileged to work for the institute, and yeah, so that's how my journey through Lehigh happened. I did engineering and philosophy. Now I end up working for the Ayakoka Institute. I'm a program manager there.
All right.
So yeah, I still use a bit of both in my daily life, but mostly I'm just a philosopher. I think through things and try to see things perhaps in a different light than what people see on the surface level. Yeah.
All right. So you go there to the US to study.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we see you in the music industry doing wonders. So how does that come about,
Oh
or how did the
yes,
music
is
industry
that
come
part of
about?
my life?
Yeah.
See, I have. It's almost like I live multiple lives.
All right.
Now the music. I love that you used a term that a lot of people use. Like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
we saw you starting to make music, and it wasn't so sudden. It
All
was just the way I popped up. Perhaps maybe was, but I started doing music a long time before that. I actually started out doing poetry.
All
I mean, I
right.
was a hip hop fan before that. I just loved the music, but my introduction to hip hop starts as me just doing poetry. I used to write poems
All
and
right.
poetic verses. I did stand up poetry for a bit of a while. So by junior school, by the time I'm doing Form 3, I'm starting to write down verses and all that. And along the way, I can see the similarities. Poetry and rap. Rap has always had that thing for me, and it was because I recognized the poetry in it. Tupac, Nas was poetry. Nas is my favorite rapper. So like lyricism and just poetry as an art was something that inspired me, because I always just wanted. I thought it was cool the way people use the words to sell feelings and ideas and emotions.
All right.
And so yeah, at junior school, I start writing these verses, and then I start rapping a little bit with my friends. I start freestyling, and would be in class, and then somebody would like bang the beat, and I would just start freestyling, and I start to gain the hang of it.
All right.
But I still keep it on the low though, because for multiple reasons. But this for the simple reason for me, it was I was still battling the imaging issue. I mean, I'm just to a lot of people, I'm just that brilliant kid who's focused at school and all that. So trying to introduce this music part of me was something a lot of people couldn't reconcile, because if I was to tell my mom I wanted to do music, she'd think I'm crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
School, all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I did it, but it was also I just kept it moderate. It was just a hobby for me with my friends when we chill. We just play a beat and we rap, and then I moved to Shakawe Senior. I have a couple of videos actually of we're rapping in class, at the dorms. We'll play beats. We just loved hip hop like that, and I've had a couple of rap battles.
All right.
I used to do actually. There's a time when we used to do rap battles online on Facebook, like we would write verses. So I was just so entrenched into the art, but I never exposed it publicly. From junior school, high school, even when I was in LKC. So I come out publicly when I'm in the US.
All right.
So that's why like people are like, oh yeah, all of a sudden you got to the US, you're a rapper now.
Yeah.
What they don't understand is I've been doing that for a very long time. It was just the first time I also even gained the confidence to put it out there like that.
So does Bishop get bookings in America to perform in shows and whatever?
Yes, I've actually had a couple of bookings. So I think for me it was always like balancing that. I mean, I was a student for the most part while in the US. I just finished a couple of months ago anyway. So it was during, my breaks, yes, I would perform every now and then. But most of my performances were in college, so a lot of college events. We usually have a lot of, college events. We also had this group that a friend of mine started. It's called Lehigh Music Creatives. So we would have like this, something called Jam Nights. So that was how I just kept up my performance side without having to go very far away and without having to mess up my school schedule. But yeah, I've had shows, in Philly. I've performed in Philly. I've had shows booked in New York. I've performed in DC, so yeah, multiple places. It was just finding the right balance with my music and school, and there wasn't really much time. Like I said, I was doing two bachelors, mechanical engineering degree and a philosophy degree require time and attention. So I only did enough to still keep the art going, but also, remember what the priorities were, which was finishing school first, which is why a lot of my music was still online because I could just sit in my room and record and do a freestyle video or record music in my room. I had everything in there. So yes, I had a couple of shows even in Lehigh, Bethlehem, performed around. So I do get bookings. I just keep them at a minimal because sometimes it's easy to be like, I'm gonna perform and then I'm gonna jump on this, and then eventually it takes a life of its own and some things start to suffer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd have one show in a couple of months, and during the breaks, maybe I could do 2, 3 shows.
All right.
Yeah.
So I heard you mentioning something about Bishop World Records in Nigeria. So,
Yes.
like, why would you set it up in Nigeria of all the African countries, especially back home here in Botswana?
For this a longer story, but it's not because I didn't want to set it up here. In fact, I tried to first set it up here. It didn't work for multiple reasons. I think Nigeria had the right balance of everything I needed, especially someone who could run it.
All right.
And in Nigeria, I have this guy. He's a friend of mine. He's my producer. Shout out to Weezy. So Weezy and I have been, very tight. He's my full-time producer, and he does. So we had that understanding of what I wanted and how I did things and my process. So I think it was just a natural decision for me to set it up in Nigeria because Weezy then is the one managing the studio. He's already doing a lot of the stuff for me. So I did want to set it up here, but I would have to first find somebody like that, and it was very difficult, I would say. I don't know what the reasons were why it was difficult for me to find somebody locally here who understood my work ethic. Sometimes it was a work ethic thing.
Yeah.
Tried to work with a couple other people. The work ethic just didn't match. We didn't understand the energy and the speed and the passion with which I did things. Some people just fall behind because when I'm moving, I'm moving. Yeah. So I need somebody who can keep up. I need somebody who's as passionate. You can teach skills, you just can't teach passion.
Yeah.
I can teach you to do a lot of things, but I can't teach you to love your work and be passionate. And the way Weezy and I met, this kid in Nigeria. He just reaches out to me online one day. He sends me a couple of beats and it's like, yo, I'm a producer, blah, blah. And I listen to his stuff and it's really good. And then he sends me a picture of his equipment. This guy had this old laptop and he was using the piano keys from church to produce these beats. And so you could tell the passion. Like, I couldn't teach you that. This was a guy who had no tools, but still he said, look, I love music so much and I want to produce, but I don't have the equipment. I always have to go to church to use the keyboard there to produce the beats. And then I cut a deal with him. I was like, okay, fine, let's do this. You will produce beats for me. And as a form of payment, I did pay him, but we had a deal that he would buy equipment. So this was my way of supporting this kid, which I felt was very talented but didn't have the resources. Along the way, we started to develop a very close bond, and he does my music, he mixes and masters my projects, and then eventually he understands that I have this dream of starting an artist management project, which he also had something he was passionate to do. So yeah, we just end up agreeing that to partner, and then started the studio in Nigeria. So he's heading and managing it. We just stay in touch every day. He updates me on stuff. We have artists that we're one artist that we have signed who's under the artist management contract with Bishop World Records, but we do creativity camps for more young artists. Just this November, we had 25 artists and producers that we put through a 3-day camp.
That's nice.
To teach them just the basics of music, the music business, distribution, sometimes you're talented, you know how to do the music, but you don't know what goes into it. Where do you start? How do I distribute my song? How do I market a song? How do I properly do things? So we set up these camps for young artists, and their creativity grows, but most importantly, they learn the whole ecosystem of the entertainment business.
All right.
So yeah, that's how Nigeria happened. It wasn't. I mean, it was eventually a direct decision I made, but it just happened naturally that I found this guy who I worked perfectly together with, and I trusted to run things on my behalf, and he just happened to be in Nigeria.
All right.
Yeah.
So I understand you are starting a new podcast, if I'm not wrong. I forget the name, but maybe you can just take us through what you're hoping to achieve with that podcast.
Yeah, the new podcast, Broken Building. Shout out to my girl Jenny. So Jenny's a colleague of mine. I just mentioned I started working for the Ayakoka Institute right after I finished college, and I meet Jennifer, who's a colleague of mine. She's also a program manager at the institute, and she's from Liberia. I'm from Botswana. Two young international students who just finished college and now are working in the US. So there's a lot of similarities in our paths, but our paths cross. And I sit across her like this every day in the office. We work together, and I also learned that she had aspirations of creating, a creative space. And it could be anything, but a podcast seemed to be the most likely project to capture all the things you wanted to do. And I happened to be a creative in a different sense. I was doing the videography, even for the institute. I was doing a lot of the videos. She knows I make music. I've done a couple of things. So it started off as I need help to set this thing up for me, and I know you have the skills, referring to myself. But the more we moved, we finally figured it would actually be very impactful if we shared this platform, because I also wanted a kind of different space from the already many spaces I've created. I had the music, I had all that, but I've done podcasting before as well, a lot of stuff. So it was just I met this great young lady who had these aspirations, and the timing aligned perfectly, and we were like, yeah, let's start this. Which is why if you watch the first episode, it was it's called Just Start.
Yeah.
It was so spontaneous. It was just that we kept throwing ideas around. We're like, let's just start it. Let's see how it goes. Then we have a first episode, and we get a good reaction from people, a good response, and then we're like, well, now we've started, what now? And then we just keep at it. So yeah, I think it's a very beautiful space, and there you get to learn a lot more about me, because through the music, a lot of things are coded and they're metaphoric, and I think in the podcast it's more conversational and more direct. You get to learn about my life story, you get to learn about my life in the US. So I think it's a great space for me and her. So I think people need to tune into that. It's called Broke and Building. So check out Broke and Building on YouTube. We have a couple of episodes there. So yeah, bottom line is you're going to learn a lot about me and my colleague Jennifer and our journeys to get to the US, because she also had her journey, I had mine. What it's like to just graduate, what it's like to start working as young professionals in the US. So this is meant for any young person really who's coming out of college, transitioning to work life, who wants to maybe go study abroad or live abroad and work abroad. We have went through these stages, so we're just sharing our experiences and insights. So yeah, check out Broken Building on YouTube.
Yeah. So now moving back home in Botswana, Cool Cat Motiko. How did your relationship begin, and where did you guys meet?
You know what? I love that boy. Shout out to Cool Cat. No, Cool Cat is my brother, man. And how we met, I was just chilling one day, and I'm on social media. There's this song that is trending, Koseronga, and
Seronga.
so yeah, it's a whole wave on social media, and to a lot of people, it was just a dope song, a catchy song, but there goes Bishop with me over analyzing things. For me, it wasn't just a catchy song. I recognized something in it, something beyond just the catchiness or the fun part of the song. I recognized something I haven't had in a long time from artists. Somebody who is proudly talking about his home, his humble beginnings. He's talking about Seronga and the things, Nkorongo. Like all those small things made that song what it is. It was storytelling for me. So I reach out to him as a fan. I still tell this to him. I'm a big fan of his, and that's how I came to meet Cool Cat. I was a fan of his music. I mean, I had already started music at that point, but I listened to this guy's music, and it's very different. And I reach out to him. I'm like, "Yo, man, I'm a big fan. I heard your song," and I'm sure at that time there were a lot of people saying this to him, but I was like, "No, do your thing." And I tell him right at this moment, like, don't change. Just stay on that wave. Keep pushing that. That's something powerful. That's something we haven't had in a long time. As somebody who's himself a kid that grew up in the Okavango, I feel represented in your music. I hope you get to do more of that.
Yeah.
And that's how the bond started. Was I reach out to this guy as somebody who's really loving his music, and I probably said something like, I wish we would work on something in the future, but that wasn't the energy for me. It was just I was just proud of this guy's work. But then the chemistry, the energy just matches. He reciprocates the energy. He also gets to hear my music, and he's impressed. So that's the funny thing about my relationship with Cool Cat. I'm a big Cool Cat fan, and Cool Cat is a big Bishop fan.
Yeah.
And I think that works pretty well for our music, because for example, we just did a project together. It's not yet out. My favorite song on that project is the one solo track that Cool Cat has, and that's he loves my verses. He knows my verses word for word. I love his verses more. So I think that just admiration and respect for each other's work keeps the bond on a different level. The understanding, there's a vision, and I met him for the first time when I got back. I think it was 2021. And finally now we meet in person, and then we talk, and then we just learn we're actually just brothers. We're related in some ways by our life stories. Our musical journeys are most likely the same, but our vision with our music was the same. It was about the Okavango people. It was about our culture. It was about being confident in who we are, which was something that a lot of our peers were struggling with. I struggled with it. He struggled with it. Just coming out as a proud Yei kid, coming out as a proud Mbukushu kid out in the world was something, a bit of an uphill struggle. So we were trying to use our music just to reinstall that pride in a lot of our peers that, yeah, you can make it and speak Mbukushu and Yei and make good music and become a big artist. You don't always have to try to sound like I sound and try to sound American. So he revolutionized my sound and my music in many ways. Because before Cool Cat, I'm just an American, typical rapper. But I meet Cool Cat, he teaches me that there's more to music than just trying to sound like somebody. I found my own voice through him, and I tell him this all the time, how much he inspired my music, which is why if every time you listen to the songs I make with Cool Cat, they sound different to maybe the music I was making before. I mean, I make strictly hip hop because I do have an American audience, so there are certain songs that just have that feel to them. But now my most recent projects, there's a lot of Mbukushu in it. There's a lot of reflection about growing up. So Cool Cat does that to me. I meet Cool Cat, and my understanding of what I wanted to do with my music changed, because I saw the power of music when he came out, and I'm like, that's what I wanted to do with the music at first. I didn't know how to do it until I saw somebody else do it, and now he's a brother to me. I was just with him 2 days ago. Even when I was in SI8, we drove together. So yeah, we're just brothers at this point. His family was here with grandma the other time. But yeah, it started off as I was inspired by him. Still am inspired by him. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Now the It's a 8 show.
I knew we were gonna get to that.
You come here from America.
Yes.
Those guys are planning on doing a show. I hope you were not around by then.
No, I was not around.
Yeah, everyone was making a mockery. Others were creating jokes. Others were doing memes. And then you come. And social media is all over. Your name is all over social media about the It's a 8 show. Can you take us through that as well?
Oh, the It's a 8 show is an interesting one. I mean, I didn't know things were going to turn out to be this way. But the long story short for me, it hasn't been that long. That's why I'm still trying to process it, because it's been like a week or two for me.
Yeah.
Because this thing was just yesterday. So, long story short, I'm on a flight from the US to Greece in Athens. And I happen to log on social media, and there's a trend, I see SI8. I'm like, okay, what did I miss? Because I hadn't logged in a while. So I realized, there's some funny memes, and they were centered around a flyer about a certain show. Now, I landed in Athens in Greece. I was in Greece for a couple of hours. It was just, I was in transit from Athens. I took a flight to Dubai. But I'm on a flight, I'm not doing anything, so I get time to reconnect with social media. I find this trend. Now, the interesting thing about that flyer and a lot of the guys that are there, I recognize some of those guys there. Shout out to my boy NTK and a lot of the guys from ETA, because what people don't know is I have a very, strong connection to ETA. Like I told you in the beginning, I studied my school there. I lived in ETA for some time, and I started primary school in ETA 6. I was living there with my auntie. We used to go play over ETA 8, ETA 9, like we'd sneak out from ETA 6 and then we'd go play there, make sure my auntie doesn't find out because she would kill me. But, that was home for me. And when I went to Shakawe Senior, a lot of those guys I met, specifically one guy, the NTK, who was actually one of the guys who was organizing the event. So at a certain point on the internet, people think it's a joke. I'm also unsure whether this is a serious event or it's a joke. But I recognize these guys, and I know these guys are very passionate about music. And I think, well, this could have been an actual event. And I'm in Greece. Before I leave for Dubai, I pick up my phone, look through my contacts. Turns out I still had NTK's number, and he was in ETA 8. I call NTK. I'm like, yo, I'm seeing this thing online. What's up with the show? Is this an actual show? And it's like, yeah, it's a serious show. It's just that people are making a mockery out of it. And I think at a certain extent that nearly killed their confidence. It did at some point. Some people started to say the show is cancelled. There was that because social media was just creating a spectacle out of him. This was just young, local artists who were trying to create something fun for themselves. But I think the world of social media couldn't miss the opportunity to just punch down on the little guys. Because I'm sure out of the 1,000 people that were sharing and making memes, if really anybody wanted to help, they could have said, hey, let me help you make a flyer or inquire how to help. But I feel like everybody was taking the opportunity to punch down on the guys instead of offering a hand up. So I'm flying to Dubai. After that, I asked NTK, it's like, yeah, the show is, and I was like, make sure that show happens, don't cancel it. I take a flight to Dubai, and then I was in Dubai for a bit. Then I take a flight from Dubai to Joburg. I fly into Gaborone, call NTK again. Is the show on? It's like, yeah, we got the permit and everything. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. I'm like, NTK, make sure that show happens. I'm coming for that show. That's when I posted on my page, and when I posted on my page, funny enough, people thought I was also on the trend, which was making fun of the ETA 8 thing. Because I remember when I got into Maung, I made a video. That's the first time people discovered I was in the country, because I didn't tell people I was in the country. I landed in Maung, I was like, yeah, ring ETA 8. But it sounded like what everybody was doing, which is the mockery part. They didn't know I was seriously going to ETA 8. I catch a bus, and then I drop off in Gumare, where my boy Cool Cat was, and then Cool Cat and he drove me. Shout out to Cool Cat and Serwalo, three of us are very good friends. We took a drive to ETA 8. I remember I told Cool Cat, I'm like, I have to go to ETA 8, and I explained to him why. And I said, look, this is bigger than music. It's bigger than the event. There's something very important in this event because I've seen it. Maybe I overthink or overanalyze things, but for me, there was a deeper thing that it inspired in me when I saw this. It reminded me of a time where I've wanted to do things, but I've had to fight mockery and ridicule. I've noticed some of the comments. These are comments I had as a child when I would do things. I've heard compliments like "Huriana ko Shakawe gona le batho ba botlhale." Huriana ko Shakawe gona le makhed. I've heard those stuff growing up, and people don't understand what that does to your confidence. And I looked at those guys as these are my peers. Like I said, NTK, we both went to Shakawe Senior. I know these guys are passionate about the music. And so when I saw that, I was like, I'm not going to sit back and watch this thing just happen. And I'm not going to be part of that trend that is going to kill the confidence of these young guys when the only thing they have going for them is their art and their music. So that's why I went to the show. In fact, I wasn't even going to perform. I just told NTK, I'm just going to show up and support the guys because I wanted the guys to perform. And I told them I'm going to come with my phone. I'm going to pull up a camera. I shot the whole videos, by the way, except when I was performing. One of the guys shot the videos. I was just there to document that event. And because for me, it was just something that the world needed to see happen and have a conversation around that thing because I thought there was a bigger conversation to have. And when I get there, NTK is the one that asked me, it would mean a lot to these guys if you really performed. And I didn't have any songs with me prepared. I haven't rehearsed because I just wanted to show up and make sure this thing happens and support them, just offer moral support. They asked me to perform. I was like, oh, sure, why not? I had a couple of tracks in my phone which I worked on with Fella, still had the files, and these guys were running like music on an old laptop and through phones. The speakers, just this vintage Pioneers. The whole setup was just cool for me because it looked so simple and so makeshift, but so powerful yet. And I was like, all right, let's do this. I send the file through Bluetooth. That takes a while. I'm sending to this other guy. He connects his phone. I get the mic, and the rest was a moment for me as an artist, for me as somebody who grew up in ETA, who's proud Mbukushu kid, who was once where those guys were. It was big. It impacted me as well as it impacted them. And now it's a thing on social media right now. It's moving. And I don't know where it goes from here, but I just hope the message for me, for people, is, like I said on one of my posts, it's very difficult for people to dream as it is, given the circumstances of our lives. So whenever you see an opportunity to laugh, there's always an opportunity to learn. So always reserve that laughter, because before you mock something, ask yourself why. Ask yourself, it's empathy. Being able to imagine yourself somebody else's shoes. And I didn't have to imagine myself in those shoes because I've been in them. So I think, that's the bigger message for me. Just whenever you see something, instead of laughing and joking about it, maybe you could help. Maybe you could come through for people if you have better resources. It's like seeing somebody walking barefooted and you laugh at them. It doesn't make sense to me why that was the initial reaction. And it gained so much popularity, even with major artists who themselves know the struggles of being young, upcoming artists. They took that opportunity to ridicule and mock. And so that hurt me, I guess, as somebody who's from there, who's lived there, who's an artist, who knows these guys personally. So it was very personal to me in a certain extent. Maybe that's why I was able to notice, was because it was personal. But I still think I don't believe that this whole thing, nobody just thought it to themselves to say, how can we help these guys? If these guys are serious, what resources we could lend? Everybody just either watched or just joined the mockery train. And I had to come all the way for myself. I was like, okay, this is personal to me, and I'm not gonna just shout at people. I'm gonna go do something about it for me and for the guys that I know. And I just showed up. That's all I did. I just showed up for them, and they appreciated it, and it became a beautiful moment. And now people appreciate it, which I like. And yeah, next year it's at 8. We're gonna make this annual, and the good thing is people still have an opportunity to come through for these guys. And I believe in. I don't believe in holding people to things. I believe in helping people understand things. So this isn't in your face thing I was trying to do. It was, hey, let's rethink what we just did and figure out if there was a way we could have better done it. And I think the next year is an opportunity for Botswana and the people of ETA 8 to do this thing that could have happened, didn't happen. But I think it happened the right way because a lot was learned from it, I believe, and I hope.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very hopeful. I'm also still in touch with the team that organized it. We're gonna make it bigger and better next year. I'm gonna be part of the team helping them set it up. But I still want this thing to remain an ETA 8 thing. I don't want this thing taken from them. I don't want things done to them or for them. I want things done with them or by them if they can. If they can do it, let them do it. If they need help, we'll help. But I wouldn't want this thing to be taken away from them. And I'll also try to make sure it stays within the people that imagined it, because I was just the guy that came through to help, and I want to remain just that. I don't want this thing to ever be anything other than the ETA 8 festival.
All right.
Yes.
So we got 3 minutes. What can you say to the upcoming artists and those guys who are venturing into the music industry, who doesn't have support and all those things?
Art is a very personal and spiritual thing. And I always tell people, if you're doing it for any reasons other than there's a fire inside you or a passion or a feeling inside you that you want to express, I mean, it's great to have other goals beyond that. You know, it's an entertainment industry or a business. It's good to have those structures. But the initial thing for me is it has to come from here. Because if it doesn't, all you're doing is using art to achieve other things. And I've seen people do that, where they're not really into the art. Some people want to be more famous more than they want to do the thing they're doing. So the thing they're doing just becomes a tool they're using to achieve what they really want, which is fame. If you use art like that, it's like a spiritual gift. It's you defile the art. And I want the art for me has always been personal and spiritual. And then after that, I figure out how I can make it sustainable. And that's where the business comes in. That's where knowing the right way to structure your brand image. How do you get bookings and how do you get royalties and all that? But at the core for upcoming artists is have the right reasons. Second advice is be a professional about everything. I don't care whether you're doing something cheap or low budget, no budget. There's no budget to being professional. And that means your approach. That means how you package things, and spend a little bit of money if it needs to for you to have a professional look. Because people do respond to looks, unfortunately. So being professional, do the best you can. And sometimes the best you can is low quality. Fine. But make sure it's your best. Don't do anything less than your best. Because if you do your best, people notice when somebody is pushing themselves. Be consistent. That's the third one for me. Consistency is big. People don't respond to events. They respond to patterns. And if as an artist, if you're just doing one thing and another, there's no consistency in your brand. There's no history or track record. If you go into my page and you watch, you can see that what this guy does. He raps, he makes music, does whatever he does. So like have that consistency to you. People, it's easy to follow somebody who has a consistency to them. Use social media. It's a powerful tool. It's also powerful in a negative sense, like we discussed, because this you're opening yourself up to online criticism.